You know what's funny? Really, genuinely hilarious? We had a whole department dedicated to studying primitive species. The Galactic Assessment Bureau. Fancy name for what was basically cosmic babysitting. And guess what those brilliant minds concluded about Earth? No immediate threat. Oh, the irony tastes so bitter now that my name is Kilvani Thorx, and I was the senior xenobiologist aboard the Hegemony flagship, Eternal Dominion. Was. Past tense. Because right now, I'm hiding in a supply closet, dictating this into my neural recorder while those impossible creatures hunt my people through the corridors of our own ship. Let me back up. 3 cycles ago, High Commander Zalthar received reports from our deep space scouts. They'd been monitoring this little blue marble called Earth for centuries. Standard protocol, really. Keep an eye on developing civilizations, make sure they don't accidentally blow themselves up before we can properly subjugate them. The reports were always the same: technological advancement slow. Species shows promise but lacks unity. Recommend continued observation. But then Prophet Vex-Nine started having those visions. Oh, did I mention we had prophets? Yeah, the Kytharan Empire believes in seers. Ancient tradition. Most of the time they predict crop failures or solar flares. Useful stuff. But Vex-Nine, he was different. His prophecies had weight. Gravity. The kind that makes your exoskeleton itch. Commander, Vex-Nine rasped during that fateful briefing, his 6 eyes rolling independently as he spoke. The third planet of the yellow star. I see darkness. Not the darkness of space, but the darkness of something awakening. Something that should not be awakened. Zalthar laughed. Actually laughed. His mandibles clicked in that dismissive way that meant he thought someone was being dramatic. Vex-Nine, friend, you're talking about humans. They can barely leave their atmosphere without killing half their crew. What could they possibly do to threaten the might of the hegemony? The prophet's head tilted at an unnatural angle. They do not fight as we fight. They do not think as we think. And when cornered, when truly cornered, they become something else entirely. More laughter from the command staff. I'll admit, I chuckled too. We'd all seen the surveillance footage. Humans fighting among themselves with primitive chemical explosives. Humans destroying their own habitat for short-term gain. Humans who couldn't even agree on basic resource distribution. Dangerous? Please, but Vex-Nine wasn't finished. I see their sky turning black. Not from their pollution or their weapons. From something else. Something they carry within them. A gift, or a curse. And in that darkness, I see our ships falling like dying stars. The briefing room fell silent. Even the most skeptical among us knew better than to completely dismiss a prophet's warning. But really, what were we supposed to do? Cancel the invasion because of some mystic mumbling about dark skies? 3 days later, we received the green light. Operation Harvest Moon. 12 battle cruisers, 47 destroyer-class vessels, and enough firepower to glass a continent. The plan was simple: establish orbital superiority, demand surrender, and begin the integration process. Standard Imperial procedure. We'd done it to 47 species before. Why should number 48 be any different? The journey to Earth took 6 standard rotations. During that time, I studied every piece of data we had on human biology, culture, and military capability. Fascinating species, really. They had this peculiar trait called imagination that seemed to influence their problem-solving abilities. Most advanced species lose that as they develop logical thinking patterns. But humans? They kept both. Weird, their military technology was laughably primitive. Kinetic projectiles. Chemical propulsion. Nuclear fission. We were dealing with plasma cannons, gravitational manipulators, and quantum disruptors. It would be like adults fighting toddlers with wooden sticks, when we dropped out of hyperspace in the Sol system, I was on the observation deck with my research team. Earth hung before us like a blue-green jewel, completely unaware of what was coming. No defensive satellites. No energy shields. No fleet waiting to greet us. Just silence. Pathetic, muttered Dr. Yulnara, my assistant. They don't even know we're here. But they did know. Oh, they knew. Because within minutes of our arrival, something impossible happened. The sky around Earth began to shift. Not the planet's sky, mind you. The space around it. It was subtle at first, like a heat shimmer, but then it became more pronounced. Darker. As if someone was slowly dimming the lights of the universe. Sensor readings? Zalthar barked from the command center. Inconclusive, sir. We're detecting massive energy fluctuations, but they don't match any known technology patterns. Source? Unknown. The readings are coming from everywhere. The planet, the surrounding space, even from particles in the solar wind. That's when the first transmission came through. Not from Earth's governments or military installations. From every electronic device on the planet simultaneously. Every radio, every television, every communication satellite. The message was simple, delivered in perfect hegemony standard by a voice that sounded almost amused. Hello, neighbors. We've been expecting you. The transmission cut out, leaving us staring at each other in bewilderment. Humans didn't speak hegemony standard. They barely spoke to each other coherently. How had they? Sir, the communications officer called out, voice tight with confusion. We're receiving another transmission. This one's different. The main screen flickered to life, showing a human female with short brown hair and eyes that seemed to hold secrets. She was sitting in what appeared to be a simple office, hands folded calmly on a desk. Behind her, through a window, we could see what looked like a perfectly normal human city. Greetings, Kytharan Hegemony. My name is Dr. Miranda Shaw. I represent the Terran Defense Initiative. We need to talk. Zalthar's mandibles clicked rapidly. Impossible. Our intelligence reports show no unified human government, no knowledge of our language. No, your intelligence reports are approximately 73% accurate, Dr. Shaw interrupted, somehow hearing him despite the communication being one way. The remaining 27% consists of what we wanted you to know. We've been aware of your surveillance for quite some time. We've been preparing. The darkness around Earth was spreading now, like ink in water. Our sensors were going haywire, unable to lock onto targets that should have been clearly visible. Stars were disappearing, not behind clouds or nebulae, but simply vanishing. This is impossible, Dr. Yulnara whispered. They're a Type 0 civilization. They shouldn't be able to. Shouldn't is such a limiting word, Dr. Shaw said, and I swear she was looking directly at my colleague. You've spent centuries studying our wars, our conflicts, our divisions. But you missed something crucial. Something that makes us uniquely human. The darkness was reaching toward our fleet now. Not consuming our ships, but surrounding them. Making them feel small. Isolated. Like predators suddenly realizing they were being hunted. When faced with extinction, Dr. Shaw continued, when confronted with an enemy that wants to destroy everything we love, we don't just fight. We become something else. Something that exists in the spaces between logic and madness. Between fear and fury. Between what is and what must be. Our weapon systems went offline. Not damaged, not destroyed. Just off. As if someone had gently reached into our most advanced technology and flipped a switch that shouldn't have existed. The Prophet was right, Dr. Shaw said, standing up from her chair. The sky is turning black. But it's not our sky. It's yours. And in that darkness, you're about to meet the part of humanity that we've kept hidden. The part that even we fear. The transmission ended, leaving us in stunned silence. Outside, the last visible stars winked out, and we found ourselves surrounded by absolute darkness. Not the darkness of space, but something deeper. Something that pressed against our minds and whispered impossible things. That's when we heard it. Laughter. Not from our ships, not from our crew. From everywhere and nowhere. Human laughter, but wrong somehow. Too knowing. Too prepared. Too hungry, and then, impossibly, footsteps. On our ships. In our corridors. Getting closer, the footsteps were getting closer. I know how that sounds, footsteps in space, on a ship sealed tighter than a tomb. But I heard them. We all did. Slow, deliberate, like someone taking their time because they knew exactly where they were going. Security teams to all levels. Zalthar's voice crackled through the intercom, but even he sounded shaken. We have unauthorized personnel aboard. Weapons free. Weapons free. As if our plasma rifles would work against whatever was walking through our corridors. Half our systems were dead, the other half were acting like they'd developed personalities of their own. The lights flickered in patterns that almost looked like Morse code. Almost that I was still on the observation deck when the first scream echoed through the ship. Not a death scream, I'd heard plenty of those. This was something else. Terror mixed with confusion. The kind of sound someone makes when they see something that shouldn't exist. Dr. Thorx, my assistant Yulnara, grabbed my arm, her scales pale with fear. The sensors are picking up life signs throughout the ship. Dozens of them. But they're not registering as any known species. Human? I asked, though I already knew the answer. That's just it. They're reading as human, but the biosignatures are wrong. Like they're human but more. Or less. Or something in between. The intercom crackled again. This time it wasn't Zalthar's voice. It was human. Male. Speaking in that same impossible hegemony standard. Attention crew of the Eternal Dominion. Please remain calm. We're not here to hurt you. We're here to have a conversation. A very important conversation about the future of this galaxy. Yulnara's grip tightened on my arm. How are they doing this? How are they even here? Before I could answer, the lights went out completely. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in a sickly red glow. And in that crimson light, I saw them, they looked human. Mostly. 2 arms, 2 legs, the right number of eyes and fingers. But there was something off about the way they moved. Too fluid. Too purposeful. Like they were conscious of every muscle fiber, every nerve ending. And their eyes held the weight of someone who had seen the end of everything and decided to keep going anyway. The one in front was tall, maybe 6 feet in human measurements, wearing what looked like a simple military uniform. No weapons visible, but he carried himself like he was the weapon. Behind him were others, men and women of various ages, all with that same unsettling presence. Dr. Kelvani Thorx, the tall one said, and I nearly jumped out of my exoskeleton. Senior xenobiologist. Author of 17 papers on primitive species integration. You wrote that humans were charmingly predictable in their responses to external threats. How do you know that? I whispered that he smiled. Not a cruel smile, but not entirely friendly either. We've been reading your work for decades. Very insightful. Very wrong, but insightful. What are you? Yulnara demanded. You're not in our databases. You're not matching any known human phenotypes. Oh, we're human, another voice said. This one belonged to a woman who stepped out of the shadows like she'd been part of them. We're just evolved. Adapted. Changed by necessity. The tall man nodded. Allow me to introduce myself. Commander Jake Morrison, Terran Defense Initiative, Special Operations Division. And before you ask, yes, we know about your 47 previous conquests. We know about your methods, your timeline, your entire operational structure. Impossible, I breathed. You're a Type 0 civilization. You can't even what? Leave our solar system? Develop faster than light travel? Understand quantum mechanics? Morrison's smile widened. You're right. We can't. But we can do something much more interesting. The ship shuddered. Not from weapons fire or engine failure. From something else. Something that made the very atoms of our hull sing in frequencies that shouldn't exist. We can adapt, the woman continued. It's our species' greatest strength and our greatest curse. Put us in a hostile environment, and we'll find a way to survive. Threaten us with extinction, and we'll become something that can't be extinct. Attack us with technology we don't understand, and we'll learn to think in ways that make your technology irrelevant. Morrison gestured to the darkness outside. You see that? That's not some fancy spacetime manipulator or dimensional weapon. That's us. All of us. Every human on Earth, linked together, thinking as one while remaining individuals. We call it the Convergence. That's impossible, Yelnara insisted. Hive minds require neural interfaces, quantum entanglement networks, massive computing power, all things we don't have, Morrison agreed cheerfully. But we have something you don't. We have the ability to believe in impossible things so hard that they become possible. We have imagination backed by desperation. And we have a very, very good reason to make sure you never reach Earth. The intercom crackled again. This time it was Zalthar's voice, but strained, fearful. All hands, this is your commander. We are no longer in control of this vessel. Repeat, we are no longer in control. The humans have somehow, they're in our systems. They're in our heads. The transmission cut to static, then to something else. Music. Human music. Something soft and melancholy that made my chest ache in ways I didn't understand. Don't worry about your commander, Morrison said. He's having a conversation with Dr. Shaw. A very educational conversation about the nature of sovereignty and the rights of species to exist without interference. You can't do this, I said, finding my voice. The hegemony has rules. Protocols. There are 47 species in our alliance, 47 species that you conquered, the woman corrected. 47 civilizations that you absorbed because they couldn't fight back effectively. Well, congratulations. You found number 48. And we're not going to be absorbed. Morrison walked over to the observation window, looking out at the darkness that had swallowed our fleet. You know what your biggest mistake was? You studied our wars. Our conflicts. Our divisions. You thought those were weaknesses. But they weren't. They were practice. Practice for what? Yelnara asked. For this. For the day when an outside force tried to destroy us. Every war we've fought, every conflict we've endured, every seemingly senseless act of violence and hatred, it was all preparation for the moment when we'd need to stand together against something that wanted to erase us entirely. The ship shuddered again, and through the darkness outside, I could see shapes moving. Not ships, not debris. Something else. Something that pulsed with a light that wasn't quite light, that moved with purpose but not physics. The convergence isn't just a weapon, Morrison explained. It's evolution in real time. Every human mind linked together, sharing knowledge, sharing perspective, sharing the one thing that makes us truly dangerous. Which is? I whispered. The absolute, unshakable belief that we have the right to exist. And the creativity to make that belief reality, no matter what stands in our way. The music stopped. In the silence that followed, I could hear something else. Voices. Millions of them, speaking in unison, speaking in languages I didn't recognize but somehow understood. They were saying goodbye. Not to us, but to who they used to be. Your prophet was right, Morrison said quietly. The sky did turn black. But it's not an ending. It's a beginning. The birth of something new. Something that can't be conquered, can't be subjugated, can't be destroyed. Something that learns from every attempt to harm it and becomes stronger. The darkness outside began to change. Not disappearing, but shifting. Becoming something else. Something that looked suspiciously like, are those our ships? Yulnara breathed, Morrison nodded. Converted. Improved. Repurposed. Your technology is impressive, but it's built on the assumption that the universe follows certain rules. We've decided to change some of those rules. This is insane, I said. You can't just rewrite the laws of physics. Can't we? The woman smiled. Watch us. The transformed fleet began to move. Not through space, but through something else. Something that existed in the gaps between reality and possibility. And as they moved, I understood what was happening. What had always been happening, humanity wasn't being conquered. They were doing the conquering. Not through force or subjugation, but through something far more terrifying. They were conquering the very concept of limitation itself. So what happens now? I asked. Morrison looked at me with those impossibly calm eyes. Now? Now we have a choice. We can send you home with a message for your hegemony. Tell them that Earth is off limits. Forever. Or you can stay. Learn. Become part of something bigger than conquest. Something that builds instead of destroys. The darkness outside was lifting now, revealing not our original fleet, but something new. Something that hummed with potential and possibility. Ships that looked like they were grown rather than built, that moved like living things through space that bend around them. The universe is vast, Morrison said. There's room for everyone. But there's no room for empires that exist only to devour others. That age is ending. We're making sure of it. In the distance, I could see Earth. Still blue, still green, still beautiful. But now it was surrounded by something else. A presence that extended far beyond the planet itself. A presence that whispered impossible things and made them real. The age of conquest was over. The age of humanity had begun, and in that moment, hiding in my supply closet, dictating these words into a recorder that might never be heard, I realized something that chilled me to my core: that we hadn't found a primitive species to conquer. We'd found our replacement, and they were being very, very polite about it.